that was fighting for gay rights, and people were killed.
Nobody was killed at Stonewall.
Nobody was killed.
In today's world, it's hard to come to a unanimous agreement on what we consider the definition of the word bootleg to be. I mean, sure, the official definition is that it tends to be products that are made as knockoff versions of the real thing. But I like to think that the word bootleg means far more than just that. To elaborate, there is one particular queen who I consider to be the reason why bootleg is now a symbol of greatness. That person being Yuhua Hamasaki. You might be thinking what exactly Yuhua has accomplished to warrant being held to such a high status. Well, let's just put it this way. RuPaul has been considered to be the ultimate drag queen that has ever set foot on this earth. I mean, without him, we wouldn't have RuPaul's Drag Race, so it's easy to give him that level of importance. Yet, what's gonna happen when eventually RuPaul retires and lives out the rest of his years in Palm Springs? Well, some fans have theorized that maybe past alumni from the show could take over as host, like Bianca Del Rio or Bob the Drag Queen, who each won their seasons and achieved a huge amount of success. Yet I think that the most obvious queen that should take over this title is none other than Yuhua Hamasaki, which is why in this video I'm going to be focusing on the mother of the House of Dry, main host of Bootleg Opinions, lip sync assassin of season 10, and future All-Stars winner. But before we start, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, follow me on Twitter at GreenGayYT, and follow my brand new Instagram and TikTok at It's Green Gay. Now back to the video. When Yuhua was put on this earth, it wouldn't take long before everything in the universe began aligning in such a way that would lead her towards an unforgettable legacy that would be studied for decades to come. Which actually isn't a joke. There was always a presence around Yuhua that showed that she was really good at maintaining an online presence. Even when the season 10 promo first released, since she was among the 5 New York City queens, many people had already began to put attention onto her, which created a pretty big hype for her during the promo period of season 10, especially since she was being so entertaining online. Her tweets were super funny, and the excuse that she had to go film Drag Race was so bizarre. I mean, some queens just like to say they went on vacation or that a family emergency had come up, but Yuhua was like, screw it, I'm just gonna say that I was in a medically induced coma that lasted months. A lot of people were comparing Yuhua's sense of humor to that of Bianca Del Rio's, so there was a really big hype set up that she was gonna be one of the funniest comedy queens of the season. Of course, another big aspect about Yuhua's brand was her strong Asian influence in her drag aesthetic. It was clear that one of the main goals she had was to appropriately represent her culture within the runways of the series. Unfortunately, she wouldn't be getting that many opportunities to really show her level of versatility. Although that's not to say that she didn't have a good showing. When the first episode was released, surprisingly, Yuhua was able to impress the judges well enough that she was in the top 3 for the challenge. Yuhua is actually a seamstress, so when it came to making an outfit, she was never going to be struggling to whip something up. Her choice to go with an avant-garde version of caution tape was interesting to say the least. Regardless, it wasn't a bad place to be. After all, she had gotten good reviews from the judges. After Miss Vanjie went home, I can imagine all the queens being so excited by the fact that they weren't the first queen to be eliminated. By this point, Yuhua had already established a friendship with the other New York City queens prior to getting on season 10, because they all worked together in the city. Plus, Yuhua would make a lot of outfits for queens in the community. For episode 2, the Rusical was super entertaining, but Yuhua's role wasn't of that much importance, so it made sense that she'd end up getting a safe placement for the challenge. I know that we all laugh now at the fact that Alyssa's way of making Yuhua's performance better was to over-exaggerate her acting so much so that it got to a point where she'd be rolling around on the floor, which was interesting to see as a viewer because yes, more is more in theater, but then again, this is Alyssa we're talking about. The runway for this episode was low-key controversial because while the prompt that the viewers at home got was that the theme was best drag, what was actually assigned to the queens when they were working on their runway package was that it would be called signature drag, meaning that there was a big discrepancy between what some queens considered to be their best drag as opposed to what they're known for wearing most of the time. But it did, however, make a lot of sense for outfits like that of Monet, since she tended to be obsessed with bodysuits at that point. Yuhua's outfit for the episode wasn't very impressive. I mean, it looked good and seemed polished enough, yet according to Yuhua, she actually had a completely different different outfit prepared for this runway, but chose not to go with it because she had already used a similar color palette the episode prior. While some feel that this was a mistake since she sacrificed having a really good runway by instead replacing it last minute with a backup, I do understand the logic behind not wanting to go with the same color palette again. At this point in the competition, I guess in terms of edit, it didn't seem like she was the main focus in terms of storyline, yet I feel like she was getting more screen time than Cameron Michaels, who barely gave any material for the editors to work with. Regardless, it meant that since Yuhua wasn't present for a lot of the season's key plot points, that her time might be coming soon. Episode 3 meant that the queens had survived the second elimination, yet this was gonna be the last week for our dear friend Yuhua Hamasaki. Yuhua said that her biggest mistake this episode was putting the interest of her teammates before her own, in an attempt to be a team player rather than argue for how she actually wanted things to go. It showed that when it came to her group for the challenge, she wasn't able to have much control over the way things were carried out. Although I kind of had to laugh at the moment where Yuhua was being pressured by her teammates to make herself look uglier, and when she asked them for one of their fake noses that they were all wearing, they all tell her that there's no more left. Meanwhile, Aquaria's standing in the corner with half her face covered in noses. This seems like sabotage to me. What we get to see from their group while they're trying to film their acting skit was very clear foreshadowing that Yuhua was gonna be in danger of being in the bottom for the episode. So the Feathers runway of season 10 was kind of life-changing to me when I first saw it, just because of the level of elevation where most of the queens in the cast had really brought some good drag with them for this main stage. Yuhua was one of them. I really appreciated many of the takes that Yuhua had with her looks for Drag Race, because it felt like a very specific point of view that was always present within her drag, but despite having a beautiful outfit that day, it was gonna end up getting completely wrecked. The judges didn't like what they had seen from her in the acting challenge. Along with that, they called her look to be cheap looking. At one point, Michelle Visage gave a critique to Yuhua, to which Yuhua quickly responded, explaining herself right away. Michelle felt that Yuhua was clapping back at her to show some attitude, but Yuhua later said that she was just trying to explain the situation, because if she sees that someone misunderstood her, she needs to try to get her point across. Although, to be fair, the worst outfit of the night was Dusty Ray Bottoms, who gave us one of the most horrendous outfit of the franchise, which coincidentally would be a great choice for a redemption outfit. But anyways, we're getting off topic. When Yuhua was in Untucked, the writing was already on the wall. She had been feeling very bad in that moment because it wasn't just the fact that she was having to deal with the stress of possibly going home. It was that most of the queens in the cast were having a good time celebrating the fact that they had made it for the following week. Although one thing she does remember was Eureka turning to her at one point in Untucked and mouthing the words, "I love you" to her, which made her feel really emotional to the point of crying. Unfortunately, she would end up in the bottom 2 along with Mayhem Miller, a queen that had already won at least one challenge, along with being a queen that had waited a decade to come. The song was Celebrity Skin, which is actually one of those song choices where you need to have a very specific aesthetic to really sell the vibe that the song is trying to communicate. That being said, in terms of looks, both Yuhua and Mayhem looked really good. It's also thanks to this lip sync that I ended up downloading the song to my Spotify playlist, because I had never heard of it before, which is kind of what I like about Drag Race. Sometimes the songs they choose for the lip syncs exposes you to music that you would have otherwise never run into or paid attention to when you heard it in public. At this point of the season, I was kind of rooting for Yuhua Hamasaki. I felt her presence on the episodes had been a really good one to have. Plus, she was a pretty decent performer. Regardless, the time came for RuPaul to announce that Mayhem had won the lip sync, and then Yuhua Hamasaki was the first New York City queen to be eliminated from the season. After filming was done, Yuhua was now in a race against time. She knew that she was an early out, which meant that early outs tend to lose the attention from the fan base early in the season, so they have to work twice as hard to keep themselves relevant within the discussion of the season online. I didn't realize it at first, but looking back, Yuhua really was on her A game in terms of how she handled her career during season 10. For the reunion episode, she ended up trolling everyone by dressing as the girl from The Ring. The gag was that nobody knew that she was gonna dress like this, but then all of a sudden, teasers for the reunion got released that just showed Yuhua with her entire face covered by the hair. It felt like watching someone doing a Halloween costume right before our very eyes. It created a lot of discussion around how funny it was for her to come dressed like that, but most importantly, it reminded us yet again that Yuhua Hamasaki has a mind that not everyone can understand. But the reaction that people gave this look was exactly what she had hoped for. She even said in one of her interviews that she thought to herself that the reunion was gonna be filled with another 13 queens, and that the eliminated queens probably weren't gonna be getting a lot of the screen time, adding to the fact that most of them were probably going to be wearing very memorable drag outfits, since it's one of their last times to be able to showcase something to the viewers at home. So she decided to just flip everyone's expectations of it. I really appreciate Yuhua because she's clearly a hustling business queen. Despite only being able to compete on 3 episodes, she did her best to salvage what she could out of it. Which brings me to Yua's most iconic phrase in the franchise, which is, quote,
"My hot and flexible body allows me to exercise in all different positions."
For some reason, I remember Yuhua pushing this quote onto the fan base for weeks after the episode aired. So much that at one point, I think people inadvertently started to like the meme. So they also started joining in to try to make it a thing. Then again, nobody was competing in the meme Olympics when it came to Miss Vanjie on that season. Nevertheless, it was a cute way of trying to create a presence for yourself within the fan base, at least while the season was still airing. One method she did this by was elevating the idea of what it meant to do a photo shoot for your outfits as a Ru girl. By season 8 and 9, we began seeing queens uploading to their Instagram their photo shoots of their runway package, but they tended to be sort of low budget type of things with not much planning behind it. Yua's runway outfit videos was one of my favorite things to look forward to every week. It had everything you needed. Not only were we getting good angles of the looks, but also close-ups to see aspects like the makeup, earrings, or detailings that would be hard to notice if she was moving on the runway, or with bad lighting that can take away from some of the glamour. Yet complete with all this, she had background music that fit with the theme of whatever the look was. And most importantly, this series showcased her creativity as a queen. One of my personal favorite looks that she did after her elimination was what she would have worn for the Hats runway. But there's countless more versions available on her Instagram, so make sure to check it out. What's probably a main theme in Yuhua's legacy is the story of her hit YouTube series, Bootleg Opinions. About a year after season 10 aired, the writing was on the wall. Yuhua realized that she was soon going to become the old news of the fanbase. With season 11 around the corner, it meant that there was going to be a new queen to go home on the 3rd episode, dethroning Yuhua's reign as the 3rd eliminated queen of the season. This was inevitable, but Yuhua decided that she wasn't going to let the enigma she had created around her name to just fade away like that. It was time to focus on building herself a better platform where she could cultivate the hearts of the fans and use it to monetize herself a career online. Originally, her series was called Bootleg Fashion Photo Review, a bold title that showed that she had no shame around taking the format and recreating it in her own channel, which was actually very impressive to me. In a way, it kind of opened the doors for many queens after her to be able to make their own fashion photo review versions on their channels, as an easy way to build their platform and engage with fans. But all of a sudden, after she had reviewed a couple seasons, the name ended up being changed to Bootleg Opinion, as it seemed that the similarity in name to the official fashion photo review may have pissed off people at World of Wonder. But that's just an assumption. Regardless, it was a blessing in disguise because it helped her series stand more on its own, which rightfully so. The input that she was giving in her YouTube channel about Queen's looks was really well articulated. Sometimes her takes would be a lot better than that of World of Wonder's official version of fashion photo review, that at the time it felt like it had gotten a little stale, which is why Yuhua coming into the game when she did was a really good move. To add more layers, you can really see the evolution of her series throughout the next couple of years. Since she began, she never really stopped making content, and especially when the pandemic happened, all she was really doing was videos on YouTube. What was also great about her channel was that she was inviting queens that didn't really get showcased very often on World of Wonder's channel. So it meant that finally there was a different avenue for queens to find themselves a platform. What I think would be exciting would be if Yuhua got the opportunity to showcase herself again to the world. It would be really cool to see the elevation of her drag since her original season. We can also best believe that a good portion of her looks will for sure have been made by her, since after all, she's a queen on a budget. Even when it comes to her DragCon booth, she's usually conservative with how she decorates it, while other queens are sometimes known to have spent thousands on getting an entire team together to create an extravagant booth. Which actually brings up the question, do you think that queens owe it to the fans to make DragCon a big experience within their booths? The worst part is that in DragCon 2022, the few accessories that Yuhua had purchased to decorate her booth was vandalized by some random people. Unfortunately, we never found out who it was that stole the blue tinsels hanging from Yuhua's booth, but maybe one day we will. Well, there you have it. Yuhua Hamasaki's significance in the RuPaul's Drag Race world is that she is a queen of hustling, a queen who did what she could with what she had and made an empire out of it. It's really no surprise that she would go on to win season 10.5. please make sure to tell me in the comments why you think that Yuhua Hamasaki deserves to be queen of all bootlegs. I want to take a moment to thank my patrons. In the Elite Pink Squad, we have Matthew Burns, Gay Uncle, Poppers Alberta, Sari Tish, and Natasha DeLeon. And in the ever-growing Green Squad, we have Azure, Cayman Rider Furry, Edgar Allan Pup, The Only Sean, IJS, Not a Punch, But a Keek, Chet Barker, Jack Beck, Aaron W, Milk Forever, Captain Chaos, and Bashir with the good beard. If you'd like to see your name on the screen, you can support me on Patreon. The link will be in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. You can start to expect more continuous uploads from me because I'm really focusing in on the channel this time around, and I really appreciate all the support and those of you that comment all the time. So I'll see you guys next time.